culture. I've been my career in Chicago for years. I am an editor of 2 literary magazines, CC&D, which you read something from earlier, and a spin-off from it from Down in the Dirt magazine. Scar's publication, Scars on TV is the web address. But another press, CyberWit, has published books of mine for the past 4 years. 3 years ago, they did one that was titled Shattering the Glass Ceiling. It's all sorts of women's issues, things. Just too many different things we can talk about, from events to education, business, and workshop facilitator. Last year, they released a book of mine that was titled Testament. That has 4 parts. The first part, which is over half the book, is all post-Roe v. Wade poetry, because since the job changed, we have been moved to Austin, Texas. So I am now living in one of the most repressive states where the women are off anymore. But I get to see firsthand what happens after the Jackson ruling and the elimination of rights for half of this country. So that takes over half the book, and there are other things in the book as well. But that was what we shared last year with everyone. But this year, which might be one of the last books I do with them, is a thing about travel, and it is titled The Universe is in Your Hands. It starts with stuff about the beginning of the universe, and the end of the universe, and the start of the stuff, and then toward the end. What it literally does is travel around the world from one thing, works its way all the way around. And the cool thing about it, in the back, there's even an index of location. So if you want to see things about Nevada, oh, that's on page 24. If you look things up by location to see where stuff is really relevant to poetry in this book. It talks about stuff that is humorous at times, poetic at times, or about climate change, or about cultural differences in traveling around the world. So I thought I would share with you a select few poems from this. It's a mellow setting. You don't need applause for it. I just like sharing these poems with you guys. But this first one, it mentions a bunch of places, and I'm not going to tell you them all because you'll hear nothing from this poem. The first one is titled Queen Isis. Try to remember your breathing exercises. Inhale, exhale. The drive-by media talking heads hurl insults, hatred, either his senator, the next president of the United States. See the screens ticker the number of dead from the last mass shooting. Fort Myers, Dallas, Nice, Orlando, San Bernardino, Sandy Hook. Try to remember to focus on your breathing. Inhale. Exhale. The past floods you. Boston, Columbine, Waco, Wisconsin Sikh Temple. This breathing alone doesn't take on terror when strikes hit Egypt. Remember the Egyptian goddess Isis, patroness of nature and wisdom. Her crown was literally a throne, a seat for her child, the pharaoh. She listened to the prayers of the aristocrats, the wealthy, the rulers, but she was also friends to the downtrodden, the sinners, and the slaves. Goddess of rebirth, Isis was the first child to the gods of earth and sky. Isis was also a goddess of reincarnation and the protector of the dead. Isis's magic spells and rituals were revered for protection and healing. You know, this breathing is getting easier now. Inhale. Exhale. But it angers me how her name has been usurped by terrorists who kill. And sure, Isis was worshipped in pagan religions, but Iraq and Syria took her name and changed the meaning from another god to cause chaos, spread their hatred, and slaughtered the masses with impunity. Wait a minute. Get back to breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Because the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria may mean evil, but these terrorists will never win when you have earth and sky on your side. Because peace isn't magic when health and protection are on your side, thanks to the better Isis ruling nature and wisdom. tell you, remember to keep your breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Because of history battles for the ISIS name, remember the legacy of true peace and love that the goddess Isis will always win. No, it's totally going to be tired. Because I'm going to go from place to place and tell you the locations. There were too many to name in that first. But the second one's all about the state name. And it's a short one called Enveloping Fog. I never imagined how beautiful the East Coast could be. Rolling hills curling one state into another. We'd drive up a hill in your rusted and dented yellow truck. I would lift my head, my chin as high as I could in anticipation to try to see the other side, the sloping down of those rolling hills. I remember walking along the beach in Maine, historic buildings lining the rocky shore, the fog so thick you couldn't see 50 feet in front of you, and people were suntanned. I even photographed a lighthouse. That enveloping fog, they just shine that light that I can barely see. How do these lighthouses work in a fog like this? It's so thick, like the cigarette smoke coming from the inside of your truck when we would drive to antique shops on the border of New Hampshire. Thick. Like a powerful force overcoming someone that holds you there, that doesn't let go, like us. Sure, but this next one is titled Puerto Rico, for Puerto Rico, and it is titled Otherwise Never-Ending Savor of Life. Not needing a passport from the U.S., and no, I won't say that this is the 51st state of the USA, I promise. The original appeal of Puerto Rico to me was the rainforests. After arriving, and before we got the chance to visit bamboo-filled or even dry rainforests, we saw that this was the home of Arecibo. Well, that changes our mission altogether. Because now I'm not the type to believe in UFOs, but credit Arecibo Observatory with the first binary pulsar discovery and the first extrasolar planet discovery. I don't care if the X-Files brought Fox Mulder there looking for evidence of extraterrestrial life. This largest radio telescope for over 50 years had a real history of exploration no one had known before. I was officially hooked. Of course, I was irritated that my camera couldn't span the entire basin, but they needed something that huge to measure the composition of our ionosphere. And hey, if you're worried about those hazardous asteroids, Arecibo was our safety net protector. So it was good to get that fishy feeling being in the power of such a piece of astronomical history before making our way to the rainforests. Tropical rainforests. And knowing Brazil suffered a 20% deforestation for more orange groves and cow pastures for mass slaughter, I fear our planet losing our most major resource in that it saves us from climate catastrophe. So, it was beautiful to immerse yourself amongst miles of bamboo, and heartbreaking to see that someone carved a pair of initials into this otherwise never-ending savor of life. Before then, I kept bamboo growing in multiple spaces throughout my own home. Since then, I've saved more bamboo for display everywhere, including meditation spaces, and even a floating picture frame around my own Yucca tropical rainforest wall photography, as I still worry about when the rainforest will be forever gone, like Arecibo Observatory. In horror, I watched video footage of the destruction of a vanguard for learning about what is beyond our little blue ball. So, remember, it is thrilling what you can see while you have a chance, because knowing what humanity is capable of, you never know how long these things you love will last. This is very cool to just be able to read like this. And to skip to the node location. And for people who just showed up, these are readings from the new book that is titled The Universe is in Your Hands, that CyberWit Press published, and it is literally about travel around the planet. So I'm just picking a few places from around the world. So I'm going to tell you where they're about, and then read a poem for you. The next one I picked for you guys is for Colorado, and it's a poem titled Just Far Enough to Feel Free. Living around high-rises in such a big city, I knew that if I jumped out of an airplane here, I wouldn't be falling between skyscrapers, but they'd escort me to farmland past the suburbs for safety. Welcome to rural America, the flattest lands in this country. So I said no. I'm flying to Colorado for my first time, and I want to see the Rocky Mountains as I fall. I know I've been here before. Sat alone with my laptop and beer at bars in Denver, seen amazing sights in Boulder, managed the inclines of Colorado Springs. But Longmont? Sure, it's a little bit closer to these mountains. Why not? Time to train. Wait for the afternoon rain sprinkles, and remember, you're being filmed for this. And then they ask you to do jazz hands if you were having fun while skydiving. You've been trained, you waited for hours, so when the time comes and you're up in the air over 18,000 feet above sea level, they say, your turn. Newsflash, if this is your first time, like me, you might go numb. I suddenly had no memory of what I was to do. My brain was jelly, just a complete blank. But my internal automatic responses kicked in, and I just walked over as told to the side of an airplane with no door. You jump. But no one says that you won't be able to breathe, that whole 125 mile per hour thing. It just makes it absolutely impossible to catch your breath. Turning your head to the side doesn't help when that pressure is on your neck, your chest, your mouth, your cheek. Stop freaking out. You'll survive this. Oh, wait, the cameraman is there, pointing that camera at you. Be a good lemming and do jazz hands like you were told. Oh, wait. Then you realize, when moving one hand out a little, the wind shoots your arm out into a straight line. Try to correct it, don't extend it, but terminal velocity is making it impossible to control your arms while you're jumping out of an airplane for the first time. Well, the effort has to count for something. Once on terra firma, the videographer will ask you, what were you doing with your arms? Just look at them matter-of-factly, point blank and say, I was doing jazz hands. Because really, how could they not tell? After, go for the left-handed brewery in Longmont to get your free You've Jumped Out of an Airplane beer, because left-handed like me or not, you deserve it. Then go to Golden, and not for the Taco John's Tex-Mex, not for the free tour of Coors Brewery, but start going up the mountain with Buffalo Bill's grave. My husband swears his ancestor killed more buffalo than Bill. Wow, this vegetarian didn't realize she just married into such slaughter royalty. Sorry, wow. Well, but don't actually go to his grave, but stop partway up the mountain instead. Turn off the road partway up and just park. Walk to where the bushes and brush clear and stop. Have a seat on the ground. Look down at the tiny cars driving below and the snaking roads like spiders on strings with such pretty colors. You're above it all now, though it's not like when you were jumping out of an airplane. You're still close to civilization, but just far enough to feel free. I'm losing my breath. This next one's actually for Vietnam, and it is titled Willie Pete. Seeing bombs during Vietnam, the white smoke rising. With each bomb exploding, I knew that smoke. It was Willie Pete, and white phosphorus. You couldn't put it out once it started burning. That stuff would destroy the forests so foreign to our U.S. troops. Everything so volatile about that war, in a way, has become a part of me. like it's in my DNA. You look at your TV screen and think it makes no sense, but it's a part of me, and for some reason I need it. I can't explain why, but I do. When you see the destruction of Willie Pete, that's what we called it, but when you see that destruction, you think of it all existentially, like, oh, violence is bad. But when I see those bombs going off, that was our only key to getting through that hell. I know you'll never understand, and it sounds sick, but seeing that white smoke from the file footage, it brought it all back to me. All those emotions came flooding back like it was yesterday. And you can't understand, but that white smoke, to us, was the closest thing we had to getting out alive. Okay, that was a heavy one. I'll bring it back to the States. This one's for California, and is titled For Far Too Many Years. After news reports of fires along the coast of California and through national forests filled half a newscast, a reporter then said on live TV, "We will now have to learn how to live with fire." Live with fire, he says, after I escaped the gates of hell and I am now forever forced into purgatory. I spend every waking moment licked by flames. I know what it's like to be parched because all this time I've been scorched. And I wonder why everyone else hasn't been living with hellfire all this time already. It's been all around us since the beginning of time, for far too many years for it to not find you. All this time, it's been breathing down your back, teasing you, whispering to you, calling to you. I'm going on a fire. I've got a whole, I got two more with fire here. I love it. Next one's for Paris. And it is titled Xyresic Flames, The Universe is in Your Hands. Is that it? The universe is in your hands of Xyresic Flames. Once in France's history, the Catholic Church and the Notre Dame reigned supreme. Catholicism was the state religion, and they collected heavy tithes from all the people's incomes without the church paying a dime. During the French Revolution in the 1790s, revolutionaries looted the Notre Dame, saying it wasn't even a church at all. And even as they tried to remove the Catholic Church from France, the Notre Dame survived. When Adolf Hitler knew defeat was near at the end of 1944, he gave out the order that if it looked like the Allies were to recapture Paris, that Germany should destroy every religious and historical monument, including the Notre Dame. But without the manpower or the munitions, German military in Paris could not abide by this telegram telling them to leave all of Paris in complete rubble. So, after falling in love with the Notre Dame, they defied the Fuhrer. Even in recent years, extremist attacks in 2015, 2016, 2017 show shootings, car bombs, even the slitting the throats of those celebrating Mass in the Notre Dame. The church survived, but new terrorism based on religion also flourished. I've always loved fire. Light some candles, listen to the crack and pop of burning wood in your fireplace. We discovered fire countless millennia ago and use it for light, heat, energy. We contain this beautiful beast to become our tool. We enjoy campfires and roasting marshmallows. We keep fire alarms charged to protect us. We find fire fascinating, and we forget to fear a fire catastrophe that can take down a forest of dried wood in a single revered cathedral. Humankind has this love-hate relationship with fire, with its thousands of chemical reactions producing a hypnotic flame. We must remember that it is not the destruction of things that feeds the flame, but the formation of new bonds that creates this heat and drives this chain reaction. as it did with Xyresic Flames in the 12-plus hour fire of the 850-year-old Notre Dame. It is a love-hate relationship we have with fire because of what it gives and what it takes away. I am going to keep reading, but I'm going to tell you guys that in this book, in Paris, wherever you are, I have pictures from, that's India. There are so many pictures in here, but I have pictures not only of the Notre Dame, but also file footage of the destruction of it on that day, April 15th, 2019, I think. Why do I remember these things? But time for another fire, and it's something a little closer to home because this is one of two Chicago poems that I'm going to share with you. This first one is Because of a Fire, as it ties in with the last poem. When we see a fire overtake the 850-year-old Notre Dame, a monument to religion, beauty, history, then wildfire engulfs islands, ravage 250,000 acres annually, we are shocked by the loss from fire, that primal, silent killer. But we keep candles lit. We hear the crackling campfire. We feel the fireplace warmth, which reminds us how we love fire so. Because if a mass fire seems to mean death and destruction, maybe after, say, the 1871 Great Fire of Chicago that overtook the only city I love, maybe that destruction only led to building something bigger, stronger, better, and made more sense. Even Chicago's underground subways are made from the post-Great Fire pedestrian underground walkways. And when I now walk in diverse cultural neighborhoods until I reach the lake, I turn to see the most beautiful skyline I've ever seen. And that's when it clicks. This frightening history of fire that scares some so, well, afterward, that's when people create something that seems so right, all because of a fire. I shared this one, I believe Vito heard it he may have, at my feature on Wednesday, and I vowed to read it at every place I go to this week while I'm in town. This is my Chicago poem I love personally, I'm so sad. This is titled Big Shoulders, This Was Her Home. This poet went to Carl Sandburg High, but her friend Brian lived further south. And one summer day, she sat in his car, and he excitedly told her he wanted to show her something. She didn't know where they were going. Her tension mounted as his anticipation grew, driving her farther south and east than either one of their high schools. Now remember, this was back in the day when Tinley Park was not congested and there were still abandoned blocks before the town was now suddenly all under construction and ugly buildings littered the landscape. Brian finally pulled over, told her to get out of the car, and they walked through the gravel until trees cleared at one spot along the horizon. He stopped. "Stop. Look over there," he said as he pointed his fingers to a tiny space between the trees. This poet from Carl Sandburg High saw the skyline of downtown Chicago with high-rises glistening like diamonds in the rough. This Chicago skyline was just south of where Carl Sandburg once lived. This poet smiled, stared a while, and made the decision right then and there that this was her destination. This was where she was meant to be. And she was not there yet, but this stormy, brawling city of big shoulders, this was her home. Nick smiles. Thank you. This next one, now I'm going to start changing gears and talk about issues. This is going to China, and this poem is titled Protecting Peace Can Put You in Prison. The first Nobel Peace Prize was granted in 1901. The first Nobel Peace Laureate to die in prison was Karl von Ossietzky, detained by Nazi Germany. He died in prison in 1938. But there's a new death, do not fear, because it seems that peace can be squashed in any millennium. Do you remember the Tiananmen Square riots back in 1989, or at least the iconic photo of a student in front of a tank? Well, the students didn't battle the Chinese government on their own and win. They had the help from Liu Xiaobo. This man for peace was revered for his work, but the Chinese government stopped him in 2008 because he was drafting and promoting a manifesto promoting a peaceful political change. And for this, the Chinese government imprisoned him as a subversive. And yes, for subversion, this man was sentenced to 11 years in prison. And it was while in prison that he was granted the Nobel Peace Prize. During the Oslo award ceremony, they left an empty chair for their imprisoned man of honor. And now the Chinese government bears responsibility more than for imprisoning a Nobel Peace Laureate who only promoted peaceful politics, but for failure to properly diagnose and treat his ailments, because on July 13th, the imprisoned Peace Prize winner died in detention of liver cancer at age 61. And sure, we can look around this room and think that we're all nice to other people, and that we respect other people. And we may think that as we look around that other people feel the same way toward us. And it's wonderful to surround yourself with people like you, who think like you, who cushion you from anyone who may think differently. Because when you stay in your bubble, everything seems fine. But it's only when we see those who choose to fight, those who are trounced upon and downtrodden only because they support a peaceful coexistence, that staying with supporters is seldom the solution. Peace with the ones you choose to know is one thing. Peace with a mortal enemy is another, when others decide that you are at fault for some unknown reason. So maybe the key to promoting peace is not to share our ideas with those like-minded minds you're near, but to find the people least like you, religiously, racially, politically, and extend your hand in peace, and then see who will take your hand. I'll take the chair back from my man in Oslo. I think I'm getting toward the end, and I've got a humorous one here for Virginia, and I think another poem, and I'm going to show you a picture on the screen. It's in the book as well. It's a short little one. 1 year later, the icing on the cake. 1 year after the white supremacy rally and the Charlottesville, Virginia riots, white supremacists came back to march on August 11th this year. The paper reported that fewer than 20 people came to their rally and thousands turned out to protest. But the icing on the cake, marching together in harmony with a black man on his left and an Indian man on his right. This was just the funniest thing when I saw this. This is like what turned out for the protest, and I think even the black guy's like, I've got to get a picture of this. This is just a riot. For the cover photo for it, I thought that was just the funniest story, and because this is what happens when you're looking for change and they're going to, why not? I am going to close with one more poem for you guys, and thank you very much for listening. This one covers Austria, India, Russia, and Antarctica, and I hope you like it, and it is titled Ever Elusive Happiness. When I was young, the world seemed the size of a thimble, and all I ever wanted was in my own backyard. But on my own, I suddenly became a dot in the universe. So, search for that key to solving this world's puzzle. Start going. After trying to climb one of the Alps in the snow wearing socks and sandals, I went to a nearby mountain to spend like 20 minutes in its radon-filled cave just to try to gain my strength again. Or after being stared by men in India for being a tall Western woman not dressed like a Muslim, I petted cows on the streets before I retreated to their iron-rich, human feces-filled Bay of Bengal just to get my feet wet. When a man in the third poorest country in the world was asked why the poor locals seemed so happy, he explained, "We may not have it all, but we can choose to be happy." And so we do. This is the battle every dot in the universe faces. No matter where we go, no matter what atrocities accost us, where is that damned key to that ever elusive happiness? Is it in a place, or do we first find it deep within?
Thank you very much. But you live in Austin?
I live in Austin.
Oh, did you know